Mark McGhee, you're looking younger by the day. Thank you for joining us.
Very nice of you to say so. I don't feel as if I'm getting any younger, certainly after the
We'll start wrap up. You started your career at Morton. Your form there earned your move to Newcastle. Take me through that move as a young guy, moving away from home for the first time.
Well, actually, I didn't start my career at Morton. I started at Bristol City.
Well, you want to change your Wikipedia then? That's embarrassing.
Does it say that?
This is Morton.
Well, I was only ever a youth player at Bristol City, but I had 2 years as a youth player at Bristol City, then I came back to Morton. And then, of course, I did leave Morton and I went to Newcastle. And in those days, it was a different world. There was no agents, of course, and there was very little communication between you and the clubs to know what was going to happen next. And to be honest, I was already training to be an architect because Morton were part-time. So I was doing that. And then I got a phone call from my dad saying that Benny Rooney, who was the manager, had phoned to say that I'd been sold to Newcastle. And I literally just had to get up, tell my boss and the architects I was leaving that day, go to train and go down to Newcastle.
So you're sold without your knowledge?
Absolutely. Yeah. No agents, no negotiating. You got there, they told you what they were going to pay you, signed the contract, got on with it. So it was
what would have happened to you if you'd said, no, I'm not going, I don't want to go to Newcastle?
It just wouldn't have occurred to me, I don't think. And to most players, they didn't really feel they had a choice.
As a young guy, did you mind being away from home? Were you quite comfortable with that?
I was quite comfortable even when I went to Bristol City at 16. I seen it as an opportunity to sort of broaden my horizons. It's never simple as that, of course. So you do have times when you wish you were back home. I've got a big family and I missed them. But no, it was it broadened your horizons and definitely helped me into the future. The fact I was away that young and had to fend for myself as well.
How much of a step up was Newcastle? How did it compare to the facilities and the training? And
it was totally different, having been at Morton, we used to train in a red ash pitch up the back there at Port Glasgow, and then you go to Newcastle. My first game was Leeds United away, Gordon McQueen and the famous sort of Leeds team, Trevor Cherry and all the guys that were part of a great Leeds team. So to go to Ellen Road in front of sort of 50,000 people, however many it was, on the 4th of January, I think it was my first game, from playing at Morton a week earlier. It was just unbelievable.
You played in quite a legendary Aberdeen side. Just how enjoyable was your time there?
Yeah, I mean, I went there, I signed for Aberdeen in Glasgow. They were down playing a cup game, and I went to the hotel and Alex Ferguson spoke to me. And at that time, Aberdeen hadn't won the league in 25 years, they hadn't won the cup for 12 years. And at the first meeting I had with them, he told me that within 5 years he wanted to win the European Cup. So I thought it was bonkers, of course, not having won the league for 25 years. But somehow there was something about it that rang good, rang true. Yeah. So, I bought his story and I signed for them, and then over that next 5 years, we won everything, including 2 European Cups, with the Super Cup. So it was a fantastic time for us.
Was there any one thing that stands out for you during that time? Any one trophy or any one experience?
Beating Real Madrid in the final, I suppose, was everyone's standout game. But I also played in 3 Scottish Cup finals for Aberdeen, and they were all great as well. But the standout thing for me at my time in Aberdeen was Alex Ferguson.
Did you have any hesitations, any concerns about moving across to Germany?
Yeah, I did. It was all new. I mean, I didn't obviously speak German, but at the very same time, Gordon Strachan had been approached to go to Cologne. So we kind of decided we'd go together. He was going to Cologne, I was going to Hamburg. I signed for Hamburg, then the day after I signed for Hamburg, Berge phoned him and took him to Man United. So he sort of dropped his shoulder and done me a dummy. So I found myself in Germany on my own, and he was at Man United. So it didn't quite work out the way we thought, but yeah, it was a big decision. But Hamburg had been the European champions the season before I went there, and they were a massive club, and it just was. I remember the manager, it was Gunter Netzer, the famous Gunter Netzer, and he flew to Aberdeen, came to my house and talked to me, and that sort of level of personality and the size of the club was just irresistible for me.
We talk about the foreign influence on the British game. What was it like for you being that foreigner now?
It was not easy. We had a coach in Ernst Happel who was an older guy who was a bit of a grouch. And he didn't suffer the foreigners that well. you know, gave us a bit of a harder time than he gave the rest, you know. So it wasn't easy. You had to stand up for yourself in a sense, but a brilliant group of players, you know, they made it easier for you. And Hamburg are a big club with great fans, so it was overall it was a positive experience.
And mentally, how do you deal with that transition, suddenly being in a country where you don't speak the language? Were there many people around you that spoke English? Was it?
Not particularly. Funny enough, people say to me, "Oh, everybody speaks English." They don't. They certainly didn't then. The ones who spoke English were usually the other foreigners, you know. So we had a Norwegian boy there called Eric Soler, and we had a Belgian lad, Gerard Plessers, and they spoke English, but not a lot of the German boys spoke English. But they were accommodating, you know. They did their best. A lot of their girlfriends spoke English and stuff like that, you know. So they did their best to integrate us and to make us feel, make it easier and to make us feel welcome.
How do you mentally prepare for the expectation of playing for Celtic?
Well, I think it's a kind of the guys that can. I mean, remember Alex Ferguson saying to me that there are players that can't play for Man United, you know, because they don't have that level of kind of mentality that means that they know that everybody else has got the biggest game of the season every week when they play Man United, you know. So when anybody goes to play against Man United, they're you know, all the relations come out of the woodwork, and you know, it's the biggest game of the season. So Man United players have got to imagine that every week. Celtic Rangers have it in Scotland, you know. You've got to play against a team who see it as the biggest game of the season every week. So you have to rise to that. And I think that some players find it a bit more natural than others, and those that can don't make it at somewhere like Celtic Rangers or Man United. So it's kind of got to be a wee bit bred.
Did you feel that quite strongly in comparison to playing for other sides? Did you?
Yeah, playing for Celtic, like I say, you know, even, you know, and Rangers or any of these bigger clubs, the expectation is huge. You know, when I went to Aberdeen, they hadn't won the league for 25 years. There was no expectation. The only expectation came from Alex Ferguson. You know, he expected to win things, and he, you know, bred that into us. But the supporters didn't. They were surprised when we won the first Scottish Cup. Whereas Celtic expect to win cups, Rangers expect to win leagues, and therefore the players that go there have to live with that expectation.
How quickly did you get a sense of that? Was it first game?
Well, I was a Celtic supporter anyway, and I'm Scottish, remember, so I knew the club fairly well from the outside. So I knew that, you know, in playing for Aberdeen against Celtic all those years previous to that, and Rangers, I knew that they were the teams to beat. You know, so and we beat them more often than not, but you know, that was something new. But I knew what the expectation levels were, and you know, Hamburg, European champions, a big club as well. You know, so expectations there were massive. So you know, I had to handle that. So none of that was scary to me. You know, I was quite comfortable with that.
When you think back to those dressing rooms, Celtic, Aberdeen, Hamburg, did you see any players around you that were struggling with that expectation, who perhaps needed an arm around you?
Yeah, definitely, in all of the clubs. And you know, you get things like, for instance, for some reason, there'll be a player that supporters will pick on. You know, for some reason he's the target. You know, and those players sometimes have a difficult time. Other younger players coming into the team, of course, have to make that step up, and they need help. So there are always those that do need some sort of help. But one of the things that somebody even like Sir Alec, regardless of how his reputation is, he wouldn't tolerate any kind of negativity. So it was always positive. So everybody helped each other. It was always, he made a mistake, everybody forgave each other. You know, nobody was criticising each other. That wasn't allowed. It was all positive input, and therefore you helped people through any sort of bad games they were having, and bad moments they were having in games.
And how much tolerance did the people at the top have for players that maybe needed more help than others? I
think someone like Sir Alex Ferguson had a sort of hugely tuned, you know, brain to who needed help and who didn't, who needed a show. I mean, so for instance, him and I had a real love-hate relationship. So he when he put his arm around me, he shouted at me. You know, he'd just abuse me the whole time, sort of thing, and he knew that would get the best out of me. Whereas there'd be another player that he knew he couldn't do that because he'd lose them. You know, and he would have wanted me to sort of take a side and say, "Come on, you're a good player. You can do it. You can this, that." You know, and give them that bit of help. Where with me, he would just, you know, he'd hammer into me and I'd hammer back at him. You know, and he knew that would get the best out of me.
Is that right? Did you prefer a bit of tough love as opposed to an arm around you?
Yeah, definitely.
We've spoken to a lot of people in football, and you touched on it yourself about the abuse you can get from the sidelines, you know, either as a player or as a manager. Do you accept that that's part and parcel of football? How much do you hear, and does it get to you more than people perhaps realise?
I think it definitely gets to people more than people realise. I think they all think that everyone's made of stone, you know, and they're not. Football players are human, just the same as everyone else. And you hear most of what's you know said. So if you're going through a period either as a player or as a manager and you're getting stick, you hear the stick, you know, and you hear it more than you should really. But it's certainly more than you do when you hear the positive stuff, sort of thing, you know.
Yeah.
So no, I think it can be very, very tough on players and on managers when they're in that situation where they're getting criticised.
Yeah. And how do you deal with that situation if, for example, you're the manager and you can see that one player is perhaps getting it in the neck from the fans? How do you deal with it?
Well, I mean, you sometimes have to protect them in the sense that you take them out of the team. You know, if they're having a bad time, you have to take them out of the team and bring them back. You certainly go public. If you're in the press, you take a positive attitude towards the player. You kind of, you know, you have sort of subliminal messages to the fans about the player and try and sort of sow a seed that there's something better underneath, or, you know, you do your best to protect the player. But the best way to do it is to get the player playing well again and get the player in a positive light. But sometimes, you know, it just can't be done, and sometimes the player's never going to be popular in the sports, and then it's up to that player whether he can cope with that, and if he can't, then he's one of these players that probably has to leave.
Yeah. And personally, how do you deal with it? Do you have to try and just teach yourself to shut off from it, or do you just focus on the game? Because as you say, at the end of the day, you're only human, you know?
You try to, you know, you know, they say be professional, don't listen to what they're saying, don't get involved in the crowd. You know, some of the stuff that gets, you know, at the time when I was on the rise as a manager, when I left Reading and I went to Leicester, and I was only at Leicester a year, and I walked out and I went to Wolves, and I was being called Judas, and you know, when I went to games, they were throwing bags of chocolate coins at me and stuff like that, you know, because of the reputation I'd got myself for being kind of, you know, sort of over ambitious in a sense, you know, Reading, Wolves in a year, Leicester in a year, and Wolves. So the abuse I got at that time was astronomical, but it was an abuse that I could live with, you know, because I'd made my decision to leave Leicester and go to Wolves, and you know, I remember speaking to Sir Alec about it, and he said, you're going to upset people by doing this, but if it's the right thing for you, you've got to do it.
When you've done that though, was there ever a time where you're sat in the house and you're thinking, I need to go to my work today and I'm going to get absolute pelters?
Absolutely.
You just have to get on with it.
Particularly when you're maybe not winning games, you know, and if you're not winning games, or you know, for instance, maybe I remember at that time I had then to go and play against Leicester, so I walked out in Leicester as Wolves manager. You then play Leicester, and not that long afterwards, and Leicester beat you.
Yeah.
You know, so you imagine the abuse that I got from the Leicester supporters on that occasion. So you're looking forward to that again. You're thinking, oh my God, you know, this is going to be horrendous. You know, but what can you do? You buy a ticket, you got to, you know, take it.
Of course, yeah. On a slightly similar note, there's been a lot of talk recently about trying to encourage parents to stop shouting at their kids on the sidelines. There's perhaps two angles to that. Obviously, it could be detrimental to a young person's mindset, but some people would also argue that you're going to have to learn to deal with that if you realistically want to be a footballer. Where do you stand on that?
I stand on that, and I think they have plenty time. The young, if we're talking about young players, I mean, I go and watch. I've got a 10-year-old. I go and watch him, and it's not just the parents. In fact, I see it less of the parents. It's now the people that are coaches and managers that are running up and down the touchline shouting at these boys, and it's totally negative. You know, I was at a conference in Germany recently where they were promoting the idea of three-a-side football up to the age of 10 years old, where there's no input. You know, to support the fans, there's no coaching. They just let them play three-a-side. It's a different setup. It's a smaller pitch, 2 sets of goals at each end, but they all get touches, they all get scoring goals, and they all just play. You know, so it's like street football. You know, and there's no input from from parents, and there's no input from coaches. So, you know, the Germans are, you know, very keen on that. They're already doing it in France, already doing a lot of it in Ireland. So, you know, there's no need for parents to be shouting and bawling and coaches to be shouting and bawling at 10-year-olds. There really isn't.
Do you ever feel like just going and pulling them up and saying...
I did a couple of weeks ago. I had a run-in with one of the coaches. I knew the coach of the other team was a friend of mine. I'd been at the Brighton game with him about a week earlier, but his assistant was running up down the touchline like a madman, shouting at young players, and I had to say to him, you've got to stop that, you know. These aren't your players, these are our team. You know, you do have to interject at times because you can't just stand and watch it.
Scotland 2, England 2, I have to ask you about it. As a fan, it was an emotional roller coaster. What was it like actually being in the thick of it?
You know, the game was fantastic, right? And the team, the first half, I mentioned Stuart Armstrong earlier. I felt as if Stuart Armstrong carried us through the first half, kept us in the game. He was magnificent. And then the second half we got better. And of course, Lee's Griffiths' 2 goals were out of this world. But all of that I don't really think about a lot or remember. All I remember is at 2-1 with 2 minutes to go, and Gordon and I both looking at it and think, what can we do to influence this? Because you could feel, you know, that although we were 2-1 up and although there was only seconds to go, England are good players, you know, and we're looking at it, and that one of the problems was we'd used all the subs. So for instance, normally we'd have stopped it by making a substitution, telling everybody to slow down, somebody maybe go down injured. I think that was maybe the only option that we missed. Maybe one of us, or I should have been down at the side shouting for one of them to go down injured, you know, and try and stop it for 30 seconds even just to take the sting out of it. Instead of that, we get kind of caught watching, and I'm only talking about the last minute and a half or 2 minutes, and you're just counting the watch, and then of course, lo and behold, you know, they score, and we've spent the last whatever time it is since then reliving that last 2 minutes and talking about what we could have done, you know.
I don't think I've ever went through an emotion like that as a football fan, from the biggest high to the lowest low in the space of seconds.
I still feel that, even you just mention it, it all comes back, you know. But for me, it was just that last 2 minutes when we're trying to make sure we win the game, and you're doing everything you can, and you're looking at every aspect of it. And then, of course, at one point it looks, you know, Stuart Armstrong comes out with the ball, and it looks as if we're going to break away and get a third. Instead of that, he makes a bad decision. He passes that, gets intercepted, goes there, and Harry Kane scores.
Probably the man of the match, you know, as well. Like, you know, one, exactly. You just think if you just
fatigue,
it up
just fatigue, and you get that. You know, you get that. You know, it's like your vision narrows as you get tireder. And he was at that moment. The boy had given everything, and just made a bad decision in the last second. And good players punish you, and that's what happened.
I'm sure no one held that against Stuart, but did he seem dejected? Could you tell that was on his mind?
I think that you know, he's a very bright lad, and therefore would think a lot about it, you know. But I think he also would hear what Gordon would be saying about him, you know, a post-match and thing about the level of his performance and what a fantastic game he had. And certainly there wouldn't be a single person in the camp who would have laid any blame at his door. We were all culpable. We were standing watching it. Could we have done something? Could the goalie have done better? Could the fullback cut out the cross? You know, should the centre half have won the header? We're all culpable. You know, he had been the one that started it when he gave the ball away, but you know, no blame was laid in.
Looking back over your career as a player and a manager, how much was mental health directly addressed? I mean, obviously you can talk about putting your arm around someone, but did anyone ever actually talk about it?
I don't think so.
Was it still quite a taboo back in that time?
I don't know so much it was a taboo. I think it was more that everybody thought they were Supermen. Do you know what I mean? That you weren't subjects, you know, and expectations from supporters and even from the management, you know, was that, you know, you didn't suffer the way normal people suffer, you know, that you were a footballer and therefore you played regardless, you know. And you know, I can remember times when, you know, I remember when my wife's mother died and I had to fly back here. I was playing in Germany at the time and fly back here, and it was a terrible time obviously for the whole family, and then I had to fly back the next day to Germany to play against Werder Bremen, and you know, so I had to sort of switch on and off from that kind of raw emotion that you're feeling at some, you know, when you're grieving like that. And there was nobody to say anything to me other than myself, to get myself on a plane, to get to the dressing room, to make sure that I steeled myself and got out there and played. And I remember with 20 minutes ago, I think we won the game 3-0, and when it went 3-0, the game was over really with 20 minutes to go. And I remember being on the pitch at that stage and just feeling as if I just collapsed inside. It all came back because the pressure was off, but the pressure of the game had made me able to kind of keep it there. But as soon as the pressure was off, it all came flooding back, you know. But there was nobody there at all. Nobody ever spoke to me. I never spoke to anybody. I just dealt with it.
Did you feel like you couldn't speak to someone, or was it just you were okay dealing with it by
No,
yourself?
I don't. No, it wasn't that I was okay dealing with it by myself. Not at all. There just was nobody.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, family obviously, but they were involved in the same thing. There was nobody out with that. There was nobody at the football club. You know, we had everyone. We'd have 3 masseurs and, you know, sports scientists even then in Hamburg. You'd have all of that, but you had nobody considering mental health. Not at all.
In those days, what do you think would have happened if, for example, you'd went to a manager and said, listen, I'm really struggling mentally here? Do you think they would have known how to deal with it? Or
I think a lot of managers wouldn't. I think a lot of them would have. You probably would know those managers, and therefore you'd be, you know, conscious of possible sort of ridicule. So you wouldn't expose yourself to that. So you just wouldn't go. Whereas, you know, there would be other guys that you know. That you could easily go to and say, look, by the way, I'm struggling. But you know, Alec Ferguson's a very intelligent guy with young sons.
Yeah.
You know, so you would know that what young people suffer. So if you had wanted to go to somebody like that, I think there are people you could go to. You know, managers that I've been with. You know, Billy McNeil. Billy McNeil's got a big family. He's got daughters. You know, but you know, he understands what young people go through. So yeah, I think they were, but. You know, we, as I said a minute ago, I think we thought ourselves that we had to be superhuman and not give in to anything like that.
In more recent times, do you see players talking about it more amongst themselves in the dressing room? You know, would someone have come to you and Gordon, for example, and say, and I think it's important to say, it's not always that someone is necessarily mentally ill. It could just be that they're struggling with low mood or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? And I think that is the case actually, you know, with footballers, you know, their confidence is low, they've had a bad game, they get a bit of stick, they've had an injury, they're coming back from injury, their wife's had a baby, their kids starting school, they've got, you know, financial issues, you know, whatever. It's all these side things that create a stress that, you know, stop you from performing as well as you can, and therefore then it starts to impact in your mental state, you know. So I think that having somebody to be able to talk to is hugely important. But I think the modern manager today, your younger managers, you know, recognise that and are looking for it, and are on the case of all the players and making sure that they're conscious of anyone who's not playing as well as they can. Whereas, you know, in the past it would have been a kind of beat them with a stick and say play better, you know, or make them run more or train them more. Nowadays it would be looking a little bit deeper and saying, right, what's going on around his life that's causing him not to be playing as well as he should, and finding what's at the root of the problem and dealing with it.
So you felt you had to, you know, as an individual and a senior figure, you had to raise your awareness of these issues, especially when you think about the contrast between your playing days and what players go through now.
Yeah, definitely. I think in all aspects of obviously modern football, we now do have sports scientists, and you do have all sorts of expertise around you, and you know, sports psychologists, all of that. But I think that as important as any is, you know, any aspect of it is that aspect of it where managers nowadays, when you do the course nowadays, you do the UEFA Pro license, which is a very elite level of coaching. A big part of that is cerebral. You know, it's not about, you know, how teaching them how to pass the ball. It's about all these things, about looking for, you know, it's about leadership and all of those sort of things. But it's also about the consciousness of looking for, you know, mental issues with the players. You know, and as I say, the barometer is how well is he playing? Why is he not playing well? He's got an injury, that's fine, but he's not got an injury, so why is he not playing well? What's wrong with him? What's going on at home? What's going on around him? And finding out and dealing with it, helping them deal with it.
Looking at society in general, male suicide rates higher than ever before. Is there anything that you can attribute that to, or what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I've got 3 sons, and you know, ever since they got to a point where they started to do exams and things, I was always conscious. I never ever put any pressure on them to get A's or anything like that, because you just, you know, you read stories about young guys that commit suicide, and it turns out because they were stressed at school, you know, it's horrendous. So, you know, I think that there are just such pressures on young people these days, whether it be boys, girls, whoever it is, you know, whether it be young footballers supposed to achieve what their father thinks they should achieve, you know, maybe that's a bit unfair, but, you know, they don't meet that expectation in a football sense, or they're athletes or whatever they're doing, or exams. And I think there are just so many pressures on young people that it is a changed world, because I think peer pressure and you know, the media and the way the world is now, the sort of demand for things and for success is so huge everywhere that it puts an enormous amount of pressure on young people.
Particularly if you're 10-year-old, do you feel you need to keep an eye on social media use, for example, and does that worry you?
100%, it does worry me. You know, I know he's like so many children these days. He played Fortnite, you know, as often as he can get in the room and get on with it. But you know, you do have to, you know, police who he's playing against and be conscious that he's aware. Now, my little boy Archie's pretty good. He doesn't step where he shouldn't, I think, in that respect. But you know, I think there are dangers out there, and I think you do have to make sure that you have the right guards up and the right security around these sort of things to make sure that they are safe, because you know, it can be a fantastic world, but you know, there's bad things out there as well.
Yeah. As you get older yourself, do you find it easier or harder to show emotion, talk about your feelings, etc.?
I don't think I've ever been very good at it. You know, I think that would be something that certain people would hold against me, that I don't talk about those things enough, and you know, I'm told that's a pretty male thing. I think it probably is to a degree, but you know, I feel sometimes there are things I would like to speak about, but you know, I tend to tough it out, keep it to myself, you know, and just, you know, continue that mental attitude that I had to be back as a player, that you just had to toughen up, sure. Which is not healthy, I know, but it's a kind of old-fashioned way, and I think it's why, you know, young managers are different now. Young managers are doing it different. They're more aware of what's possible and what help they can get.
Yeah. Sorry to bring up age, you're in your 60s now. What advice would you give to a young person, either anyone in the public or a young footballer struggling with their mental health?
Yeah, I think, first of all, it starts, as I say, with the new breed of management, where they're looking for it and they're conscious of it and they are willing to, you know, to talk about it. So I think the important thing for young people like you're talking about now is to know that they are free to talk, and that they won't be ridiculed and they won't be criticised, that it's accepted that these pressures and these stresses that they're feeling are real, and you know, they can be helped, and that therefore they should talk to, even if it's their pal or even if it's their coach or the assistant manager or, you know, the physio, if it's a footballer. You know, those sort of people are there. The breed of physios nowadays, you know, the brilliant guys, you know, all the guys that worked with the Scotland team here, you know, getting to know them in the clubs I've worked at, you know, they're the front line to the players in terms of the first line of sort of medical sort of help. So they do watch out for it, and they are important in the process. So speak to people like that, speak to senior players, you know, people, you know, here, you know, you got someone like Darren Fletcher, who's the captain obviously of Scotland, you know, a magnificent individual, a great guy, you know, so there's no way in the world that some young player couldn't approach him, and you know, and there are lots of people at football clubs like that young players don't have to necessarily go to the manager, they can go to one of their mates.
In spite of all the ups and downs that we've spoken about, do you fancy another managerial job?
Yeah, I'm quite up for doing actually what I did with Gordon, and you know, assisting Gordon and helping Gordon. I really enjoyed that. So at this moment in time, I might be the job I would be looking forward to, go in with some young manager and just work with him and help him and try and make him successful, rather than worrying too much whether I go in again as. I mean, I've had 970 odd games as a manager, nearly 1,000 games as a manager. It's probably just about enough. So I can probably live with just help somebody else now.
Would you ever go abroad again?
Yeah, I would, yeah. I'm in the shortlist for a job abroad at the moment, actually, a national job, which, you know, will come to fruition in December or January. So yeah, I'm up for something like that.
Fantastic. To finish off, Mark, what advice would you give to a 21-year-old Mark McGhee?
I would say, don't drink, get early nights, work harder at training. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I trained hard, but you know, we didn't go in the gym. You know, the gym was, when the weather was really bad, and with nothing else to go, they'd send us in the gym and we'd then go in and try and lift the biggest weights you could lift for a laugh, you know, sort of thing, instead of using like the gym. So there are all sorts of things nowadays that can make you a better player, and I think at 21 there would have been a lot I could have done to make myself an even better player, and I'd love to have another go at it, to be honest. And things like the gym and extra training and looking after yourself better and eating better and sleeping better would all be part of it.
Mark, absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.